Hello, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. I'm so excited to see you. I see that Heather or Haley Catpaws is in the chat. Hi. I also see that FF Hellboy is in the chat. Welcome. I'm super excited that you guys can make it. Today, we are going to be talking about a variety of fun topics, but I think the choose five templates. I already see some questions from Bruno regarding the choose five templates. So maybe we'll get started with that. But before we get started, I just wanted to ask you guys about your weekends. How was it for you? Did you have a relaxing weekend, a fun weekend? Let me know in the comments. Oh, another news. Effect House was at GDC last week, and we were able to talk to a lot of people who are game partners or indie game developers and explain to them what Effect House is and how they can better use it to promote their games that are coming out. So that was really fun. And just for you guys who are joining us online, we've recorded our GDC talk. So that will be available in YouTube this coming Friday. So don't forget to come back and check in for the amazing GDC talk. And with me, I have an amazing person and game developer and overall a fun guy, August. Hi, August.
Hey, how's it going? I hope you had fun at GDC. I also did. I, yeah, I was basically followed around all week and asked for so many autographs. I couldn't get away from them. It was hard. No, I got to see some really cool talks by some games that I'm actually playing, like Harry Potter Legacy and Valorant. And I got to meet so many indie developers and play their games. I went to after parties and just like met these people who wanted to find some connections, either because they're looking for a job or they just want to meet other game developers. It was really fun. I think I probably met like 50 different people, like in the way that we added each other online and, said, hey, well, keep in touch. Oh, yeah. If there's anybody in this stream that I met from GDC,
Hey.
say hey.
But it seems like you guys also
Yeah, it was
had
super
a fun weekend because I see that Bruno went to Lollapalooza. My weekend was very intense, 3 days of Lollapalooza with lots of rain. Oh my gosh. I hope that you still had lots of fun, Bruno, despite the rain. I think, tell me in the comments what artists you got to see because I want to know. I want to live vicariously through you. But I also saw on like some people's Instagram stories that people were going to Ultra this weekend in Miami, and it also rained a lot there. So I don't know what is it with the rain and getting us perfectly during our fun festival seasons. But yeah, I hope you guys have fun. Okay, the questions are starting to roll in. Ooh, we also have a fun poll going at the moment. Would you rather be able to slide down rainbows or jump on clouds? Maybe all the 43% of you who said jump on clouds was the reason behind Bruno's unfortunate rain episode. So, guys, stop jumping on clouds. Only slide down rainbows, okay? Okay. Let's start it with the question of the day. Thank you, Bruno, for leaving this question for office hours in our Discord channel. I love the layout controller subgraph used in the Choose 5 template. Is there any way for me to know which image the user is touching?
uh, yeah, let's take a look. The Choose 5. So this is meant to be a super basic template where you kind of just swap some stuff out. The layout controller is kind of like a way to organize a grid on screen. It's kind of it's kind of nice. Um, so you can see this will basically create that grid at the start, and it's using start, but then it won't really do anything else after that time. So this is really great for like templates, but if you're going to make your own effect, realistically, you could just set it up automatically however you want it, right? And then you would have a little bit more control. One thing that you could do if you want to know which one they're touching. So each of these is a screen transform and an image. So if you wanted for each of these, this would be the most straightforward way to do it. Screen tap, screen image tap, it's called. So you would use a screen image tap for each of these. And then whenever they tap on it, you would get an event from this. That's a very like basic way. The problem is you would also need to be touching on the image before you start circling, where I think a lot of people would circle around the outside. So it might not be a perfect solution. Let's see. So one thing that might be good is like associating after you have this layout controller, associating a mouse position with an index, I guess. So yeah, that math is going to get a little complicated. I've done it before. It's just one of the things where there's a million little things you forget while you're doing it. Let's see. Finger touch. So this current position, and then these are also, it seems like they're centered. So let's see the rows. Yeah, I did not make this one, by the way, so I'm figuring it out as I go, looking with you guys. So it looks like, yeah, it's just going around center. It is, I do notice it is raised up a little bit. That might be, yeah, okay. So this options menu is raised up. So if I were to center it, then yeah, it is going to be completely centered. So you have to take that into account, the options parent Y distance. And then other than that, they're perfectly centered on this object. Okay. So this item scale. The other thing I want to check is the item scale. Is that the size of the item in screen width? Where are we setting scale? Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to know about how they're organized in order to you have to literally decode this whole piece where they're setting it up in the grid. So it has to basically, it's specific based on this algorithm. I don't see where it's setting scale quite yet. Okay, never mind. Here it is. So scale, yeah, here's another interesting kind of thing. The scale is 0.25. And then we also have to take into account that the size is going to be a square 720 by 720. So it's going to be screen width, and then the height is also going to be screen width. Okay. So we have all the pieces that I think we would need. It's just a lot of math. So basically what you would want to do is use all of that info, and you would hard code some of this. I don't, especially if you're making your own and you're not making a template, I would say just say that this is going to be 720 by 720. Sorry. Let's see. This is going to be maybe too much for a live, actually. I don't want to pull up my personal project, but I have a personal project where I've done this, and I have my own grid set thing, and then I think I spent a lot of time doing a grid, read subgraph. Yeah, I almost want to say we should finish creating this offline and then share it at the next live, because it seems really hard. You think that's okay, Celine, if we just
Yep, that is totally acceptable. But I think it will be a useful subgraph that a lot of people can use. So thank you, Bruno, for asking the question. Check back on the next live next week, and we'll come back to you with the details. The second question is from Addie. Addie's having a problem uploading an effect using a version 3.9 and above, even if the effect is not using the VFX feature. So they're wondering if it's not, you can't upload an effect using 3.9 plus versions. But I think this is just a technical error, maybe reported to our support, and they should be able to help you. August, anything to add?
Yeah, usually when that happens, I notice people maybe need to just upload their TikTok app, because the app has to be up to date with whatever Effect House is outputting as well. So you might just need to update your TikTok app.
Okay, try that and let us know if it works. Otherwise, we can help you with our support can help you. Addie is also asking another question. They're saying, "Hi August, can you give us a quick explanation between all built-in render texture? I can't find a detailed documentation about them."
Yeah, so let's take a look. If we just go to set this texture, we'll see all the built-in textures. So there's a lot of these that kind of just are there in case you need them for a feature, and some of them are just kind of like used for specific reasons. So background texture is just kind of there in case you need it for the segmentation feature. It's meant to give you like a nice, pretty background when you're just using the basic segmentation. Bling is in case you use the bling post-processing feature. This is just like a texture that's needed. Realistically, maybe, I don't know why it needs to be in this list. Bright LUT texture is the default lookup table. So if you add a post-processing lookup table, this is the default built-in render output. So this is kind of there's this and final render output. And I think final render output is the real one that outputs. Filter render output and built-in render output. To be completely honest, maybe we should look this up and see if there's more info, because I'm not entirely sure what all three of them are for. But when I need to put something out that's going to appear on the screen, and I need to be really careful to do that, I always set my cameras to final render output. If you take a look at the 2D camera here, you'll see that is set to final render output as well. And I think all the cameras default to that. And then here, let's see. We only really care about the okay. I guess we'll go back to this. I was gonna say you only really asked about the render textures. So some of these are just default textures. Camera texture. So this is the like input camera. So this is I think the most basic one that doesn't have anything extra. But if you were to look at like face mask output, I think that is it face mask output that has the built-in makeup. So TikTok, before you even add an effect, you can add basic makeup and like skin smoothing and stuff like that. So this face mask output, I believe, will keep those skin smoothing and stuff like that, and will not overwrite it. So if you want to make an effect where you're not overwriting those things that people choose to add, I think that and retouch render output, I think both do the same things. Yeah, there's a few here that, to be honest, we should look up and find out more info. And then the rest of these are just kind of textures that the camera sort of, or not the camera, but that the tool uses for some feature, like noise texture, white texture, none. None is actually no texture. I think it's probably some kind of default texture that's just transparent or something like that. It's just a way to say none without having that kind of broken look. For instance, this option 10 text is here, is currently selected, and if I delete it, then we go back here, then you'll see this missing, and that's not good. Basically, anytime you see this pink missing thing, try to fix it in your project. Just because, in my experience, anytime there's this, and you could switch it to like something like none, it's less likely that you're going to have some sort of bug that will impact performance. And yeah, so that's just a tip.
They also
Yeah,
had a follow-up question. Addie is asking, what's the difference between filter render output and retouch filter output? Or are these built-in filters and beauty touch-up output in the TikTok? I think you already covered it, but just wanted to read it out loud.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll see if somebody internally can give us those answers, and maybe we can update the website if it's not complete.
Mm-hmm. Heather is also asking some questions about VFX editor. We do have a VFX editor office hours coming soon with those who built the system, so they can also teach us so much fun things. But August, would you be okay like covering some VFX questions?
I don't think I have a VFX build on my
Mm.
machine. I think that's a beta only.
Okay, okay.
Um, yeah.
So I unfortunately, Heather, I'm so sorry, but we'll reserve the VFX questions for the VFX office hours, but it's coming soon. I'm actually hard launching this for you. I'm it's the first time I'm mentioning it anywhere that we will have a VFX office hours, but we will, and I'm releasing this confidential information for you, Heather. But it will come soon. We
Super
have
excited.
a question from Pablo. Pablo is saying, are you guys releasing 3D hand tracking soon? It would be so cool.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we're not releasing. We're not. We haven't publicly said anything about 3D hand tracking. The current hand tracker just uses 2D. But yeah, if you really need 3D hand tracking, I suggest using Body Avatar Drive and just using a like blank skeleton and tracking the hands that way. But yeah, I understand. It seems like 3D hand tracking would fit maybe more situations.
Okay, sounds good. We are having some questions about frame rating. Ik, Arc Mario is asking, hi, I was wondering if there's any way to control the frame rate of recorded video or whatever the camera is focusing on in real time.
Um, so in order to do that, um, there's not really a great way to do it. But if you take screenshots, here, let's see. Oops. So snapshot.
While I was reading this question, it really reminded me of Hiroyuki's massively viral effect, time glitch. I actually was filming a TikTok yesterday and used it. It just has such a cool look. I think maybe he's also using the continuous snapshot.
I think he released that before continuous snapshot existed. I actually made that same exact effect and I showed it around the office, and people were like, "Whoa, this is cool." And then we just never did anything with it. And so when I saw his effect go viral, I was like, "Oh my god, we should have
Missed
released it.
potential,
It
missed
was
potential.
cool."
Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the way he and I both did it without continuous snapshot was um very tedious, very tedious. Like keeping a large collection of screenshots, writing a bunch of extra logic to kind of sift through them and pick the one that's like current versus the one that's like happened like a few seconds ago versus like 1 second ago, and then just change the speed that you're iterating through them. So the reason that that was like a common idea that like we both had is because when you're capturing uh, a bunch of frames into a bunch of textures, there's not too much you could do with the speed that you play it back, because you can't take that many textures. If you take too many textures, the effect won't be able to hold all of those textures and it won't run very fast. So then just like kind of ping ponging between them, I think is like one of the first things you would think to try. Um, so with this continuous snapshot, it makes it a lot easier. Let's see. So max count, I think we could say 20. I think when I did it, I might have tried like 100 textures and then it was way too much. The resolution ratio. I think I'm actually the person who had them add this because I was telling them if you're taking a bunch of screenshots, we need to be able to make a lower resolution.
August,
Screen.
our live stream, the one that you're in right now, also has this cool glitchy effect, but it's not because of an effect. Unfortunately, it's due to networking issues. Haha.
I wonder if it has to do here. I'll. I was trying to like also have the live stream pulled up, but
No, no,
I'll.
no. It's totally fine. I was making a joke. Carry on, carry on.
Okay. Okay. So camera texture. This is going to be the texture of the camera. So for this one, we would just take get render texture, and this will that means that this will take that one, the camera texture from 2D camera, meaning that, well, let's do a sample. For this option 1, instead of none, we'll do camera input, camera texture, so that you can at least see something. Oh, and I think we have me at the bottom here too. It's not really segment. Oh yeah, it is segmentation. So that will be captured. Okay, so now every frame that's rendered will be captured to a render texture here. And then here's the array. Um, let's see, we might need an array info. We're gonna need a get, oops, get item from array. And then, so once it's like warmed up, once 20 frames have passed, what you can do is just, let's see, how do we want to ping pong? I guess a sign function. Oh, hey, my subgraphs that I uploaded to the library, I use both of these a lot. So signal bottom will be 0, signal peak will be 20. Makes it super easy to do something like this. And then we'll just add a get time to drive the sign constructor. Okay, so time. And then this will tell us, it'll keep bopping back and forth between 0 and 20. And so it will select the oldest and then the newest, oldest and newest, and it'll keep going on like a transition. And that sine wave will be what's driving it. So it'll be a pretty smooth transition. and it'll be transitioning between which texture it's choosing. So then we need something that tells it, let's see, we need somewhere to set this. So first of all, let's take this final render output. We were just talking about these, and we'll create a new render texture. We don't want to see this. We hate it. It looks ugly. We hate this. No, I'm just kidding. But we don't want to see this.
We hate
We want
this.
to hide it. And then we want to, well, I wish there was an easier way to create a new 2D camera. But we'll just delete everything down here. So what I'm doing is I'm creating another 2D camera, and I'm going to output to final render output. So the other one is just putting to a render texture that we can't see, and then this one will output to our final render output, so we can just kind of see the delayed other one, the snapshots that we're taking. Or this is our way to visualize it. So we couldn't see it before, and now we'll set this one back to final out. And then on this background, we have the render texture. Oh, it's dyed green. That's funny. Okay, so currently, let's see. Final render out. Okay, so now we're seeing just exactly what it is. And realistically, we could put none here. I want to show you that this selected render texture is not really doing anything, because we're going to set it here. And so, and we'll do an update. We'll just constantly, every time a new frame is captured, and see how it's doing the time glitch thing where it's going back and forth, speeding up, slowing down. And the reason that this would be able to run on low end like Android devices is because this resolution ratio is very low. But if we want it to be actually like visible again, so you can see what's happening, you might just play with this. Let's see. And you can see it's like not that crazy. Okay. Let's change this frequency and make the ping-ponging much faster. So frequency of 10. So then it's going to be like doing a lot. Notice how it's kind of like, now it looks like a boomerang. The way that it's like bopping back and forth, maybe a little too fast. And notice how it glitched out during that warm-up phase where it's still grabbing textures.
That is actually so funny. Match to booping August.
But yeah, that's how you would do it. The continuous snapshot makes it 1,000 times easier to collect these screenshots. And then my sine constructor subgraph makes it super easy to make just like a sine wave that can smoothly go back and forth through them. Yeah, this whole effect can be made pretty easily. Yeah, I think that answers the original question.
If someone were to try to recreate something like the time glitch or the effect that you've created, how can someone go about doing that?
Yeah, so you'll want to have a render texture, and everything that you want to capture and like zip back and forth between, like this whole background, all this stuff should be under the camera that is outputting to the render texture. And then what you would want is to input that camera render texture, like this blue node, into the continuous snapshot and make sure to start it. Make sure your continuous snapshot has some largish number, like 20, of in the max count. That's how many render textures it will get. And then try to keep your resolution ratio as low as possible while still looking as good as you need it to. So I have 0.4 set here. Next, you'll want to use a sine wave to choose over time which index you're choosing from this snapshot textures array. And then once you have that, you'll set that constantly changing texture to a full screen texture in a second 2D camera that's outputting. This camera is outputting to final render out so you can actually see it. And so those are all the parts, and there's not really much else to it. It's a little tricky because anytime you're working with render textures and different layers and the timing with a continuous snapshot, it's a little tricky, but yeah, it should work fine.
Okay, next question. Again from Addie. I'm loving all of the questions you have. Addie is saying, "Hi August, can you teach us a little bit on how to recalculate normal after some vertex displacement? I created a water shader and somehow the recalculated normal is getting flatter and flatter over time. I use time node to animate the wave. It is only correct for a couple of seconds. The wave function I use is a Gerstner wave function, 3 of them on top of each other with different frequency."
This is a question that I think the VFX graph people will love, but it might be a little too much for me.
They will eat this up. They will love, love, love this question.
Yeah. If it's like the rendering people that I know it might be, then I think they would have a lot of answers.
Okay, sounds good. It does seem like they're using maybe shader graph to create this. I guess, is there a way to what do you think is the reason why it's getting flatter and flatter, perhaps?
Well, it's hard to say like how much of the simulator is written in material graph versus like the normals coming in from the model and like how they're being calculated. I feel like I would need like a lot of info. But even so, I I feel like I do fall a little bit short sometimes when it comes to the like very technical vertex shader kind of world.
Okay, so we'll bring this question up again on the VFX office hours. We got another question from Gab7479. "I want to create a button that triggers only when holding it down. Is that possible? Like long press?"
Yeah, sure. So I wonder if we should open a new project. Here, let's see. I'll just get a fresh environment here. So the things that you would want. So screen image tap is like usually the simplest. So we'll go with that, and we'll just do a screen image. And so to demo this, I'll probably just change the color of this. Also, let's check if that exists in the library. Asset library.
I always forget to check the asset library, but we always like update so many new 2D textures, 3D textures. Have you seen the new 2D texture that they've added to the asset library? So many fun like letters that look like they're from a scrapbook. So
Totally. So touch and drag. So this is my favorite subgraph, so we'll just add it anyway. But I think we'll just do something simple. So we'll add this screen image into this screen image tap. So now, let's see. We'll set the color of it just to show it off. We'll just make it like slightly, we'll just make it gray when it's pressed. So now basically what you want is to receive another, you want a continuous signal as it's being pressed, I guess. So let's see, finger touch. We'll just make something pretty simple, but we'll contain it in a subgraph so that we can create a subgraph variable that's just tied to this. This is like, a lot of times I'll create, even though my functions aren't ready to be put into a subgraph, I'll create a subgraph just so I can create a subgraph variable because I want it to be kind of self-contained. So let's see, we'll have finger touch. We're just gonna say is touching. And then we'll set it and we'll get it. And then we'll forget it. I don't know.
Are you a rapper? I'll set it and get it and forget it. Sorry, I'm just in a silly, goofy mood.
It's like more like 90s like product commercials.
Chop it, dice it, pull it.
Oh God, not the slap chop guy. um, so okay, now we'll create an if. So if on stop, if is touching was set. So we're basically saying, so this is, actually we don't have to even check. But we'll keep that because that's going to be useful. We'll duplicate this. And basically when you stop touching, we'll say you're just always not touching anymore. Even if you were already not touching, it's okay to set this to say you're still not touching. And then what we want the if statement for is on stay. If you are touching, then we'll say while touching. So funny, just whenever there's something where you're just like repeating the same word over, it always gets me laughing. So we've got is touching, and then if is touching is set by the screen image tap, then until you stop touching, you'll stay touching. So here's what that looks like. So if we start touching, oh, okay. So it's defaulted to on. Always remember that all Booleans are defaulted to true. So you would have to do one touch. If I didn't do this, you would have to do one touch before it starts working. So now if I touch over here, I'm touching, nothing's happening. I'm tapping here, I'm touching. Okay, so now when we stop touching, we also want to make sure to set the color back to normal so that it's more visual. So we can, this is just basically for the demo, so you can see the interaction. So touching over here, touching here, and now this whole while touching is going to only be outputting while the texture is colored more dark. So now you have this subgraph where it outputs that. So this might solve your problem. And if you wanted, you could also output these events, which is what I usually do if I create something like this, where it's like start touch and stop touch, because you'll probably need that, somewhere in your logic. And then if you were, since it is a subgraph, if you wanted to do something like, what is this image? Oh, interesting. I guess you have to use others if you want an image. And then from here, this is where I would assign it. And then I would just never look inside again. While, and I'll just call this while touching subgraph. I don't know. I would think of a better name if I was like really outputting this. But, and then I probably would not add that color part in here. I would probably do this, and it would be, now you can see how simple this subgraph is. And then I would use the start touch and stop touch here. And then whatever you want to be happening while you're touching, the whole time you're touching, then you would use this other output. And then this is pretty clean. I think there's not much different I would do here if I needed this specific subgraph. Let me know if that answered your question. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Addie is complimenting you on creating that variable. They're saying, yeah, me too, August. That is such a great and functional habit to have. It also makes the project more organized by compartmentalizing each function. So, for those of you who are starting to use visual scripting or material editor, definitely created a habit of making variables so you can easily adjust them at the same time.
Yeah, because now I can have as many of these subgraphs as I want, and they each have their own is touching variable. So that I don't
Mm.
have to create a bunch of them and hope they don't overlap. Now it's all self-contained in here. And as you can see in this top level, I don't really have any variables.
Mm-hmm.
So then it becomes so much cleaner when you do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Danny is in the chat. Hi, Danny. Danny is asking, "Hey, August. I love how everyone starts preface their question by saying, "Hey, August." I feel like I totally do this as well when I'm like trying to text someone. I'll be like, "Hey, August." But they're asking, "Can you show us how one might simulate a domino falling realistically?"
Ooh. Here, I think I'm gonna output this. I
Wait,
think
I think that is actually. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
I think I'm just gonna output this subgraph in case I want to share it later or use it later. Oh, I feel
Perfect.
like a while touching is pretty useful.
Useful. Yeah. Maybe it should go in the asset library.
Yeah, or at
Uh,
least my library.
Yeah, but I was just thinking it would be so cool if you kind of combine the desert dash template, like where you're going forward with this domino idea. So, depending on like where you hit the domino, you get like 30 dominoes locked or like 15 dominoes locked, and then you can see like what your high score is. And
uh,
using the gaming principles that August has taught us, like if it's out of screen and if you want to reuse the assets, just place it blah blah blah, you might be able to simulate some big numbers there. So I'm
yeah,
learning from you, August. I'm taking I'm remembering all of the gaming principles in mind.
you're you're talking about some big dominoes. Those are the only kind I care about. Giant dominoes. Uh,
We always bust into like some kind of accent, and I don't know where they're from. Like, what accent is this? Is this the
I'm I'm sorry.
transatlantic accent?
I'm sorry. So when I lived in Cleveland, I had a roommate, and we basically both worked at the same climbing gym for a while. And I was an engineer, indie developer, and he was like a music producer. And so much of our time was spent saying like, all right, I have to work on my project when I get home. And then like we would always just screw around so much, and I feel like we constantly slipped into these like characters and weird things like that. And and so I almost feel like I've carried that along to other jobs and parts of my life where I'm just like, oh God, we're slipping into characters again.
That is so funny.
But maybe you did that too. Maybe we both did this.
Yeah, mate. That is completely true. I do always get off of work and say, I gotta work on my project. I don't know. Carry on.
Carry on, carry on. Okay, so take a look at these dominoes. So here's something that might be pretty helpful. I need to use the mouse because this zooming is getting a little chaotic. Once you get onto like bigger scales, I feel like the zooming gets a little touchy. Maybe if I reset view. Okay, that feels a lot better. Sometimes you just need to reset view. Okay, so this sphere is going to be my explosive. We'll just call it an explosive. So it doesn't, just to visualize, I'll create like a red material. Sometimes you feel like maybe I shouldn't take the extra time to make like something that's just visually representing what I'm doing, but I promise it makes it a lot easier to work and think. So I'm going to make this material just so I can see this red sphere that is going to disappear if I ever made this effect. There's no collider or rigid body on this. It's just meant to be like a position, a world position. So let's see. I'll scale it down a little bit to kind of represent. I want it to be like a little explosion. And then we'll get into the subgraphs. So physics, we're going to have add impulse. And so say this is a game where you're knocking over dominoes, you probably are only going to knock down the first one, right? And then that one is going to knock the others down. Okay, also let's create a floor so that they don't all fall. You might notice none of them are in the preview window, and that's because they've all fallen. So I'll just do this. Let's see, what is this, Z? I'll just do 90. And then I'll drag it down, and we'll just make a little floor for ourselves for these dominoes to sit on. We'll just make it huge. We don't need this. Oh, okay. And there we go. So then for the floor, cube 3, we'll just call floor. We also have to make it static. And then we'll refresh and see where these dominoes are sitting. All right, so our camera, I don't know why I had to make these giant dominoes, just because we were talking about giant dominoes. Probably would have been easier if I just made them small.
No, but it would be so much more fun if you're, instead of rolling a ball, you are like hitting it with a car, and then all of those are buildings. Oh my gosh, no. I take that back. I sound like that sounded bad. I take it back, guys. It is a really big domino.
Yes, large dominoes with no people inside. So this apply.
Absolutely no people inside. It is, yeah, carry on.
Finger touch, we're going to use the on start just as a way to like add an impulse whenever we feel like it. So I'll just plug this directly in. And then the impulse that we're basically going to apply on this first cube. Yeah, so that's the one we want to hit. And then I'll just grab this rigid body. So as I've said quite a few times, if you ever use any of these physics nodes and you have this rigid body input, or anything that when you get it, it says JS script component, just make sure to actually get this and pin it from the actual object. Don't use the selector here because it's a little fidgety. Like if we select this cube, it actually might work, but there's a chance that there's a known issue that it will have a problem. So local impulse is going to take in the position on the same object itself and just use a local transformation. We don't actually care about that. We want to get the position of this explosive. So that's why we created this. We'll get the position of the explosive and we'll plug that into our position. And then our force is basically going to be all in the X direction. We're going to blast it in the X direction. So we'll just put whatever force we want to put, like 200 up here. And then since these are big dominoes, if we want this to feel more realistic, we'll increase the mass and just change that mass to whatever you want. I'm going to make it 5 and we'll make the other one 5 and then we'll leave the other one 1 so we can see how it is. Okay. So if I tap, you can see it's not really doing anything. So then if I plug in this get component rigid body, then you can see it does work. So yeah, just another shout out to this potential bug that appears sometimes. Just make sure to actually pin the get component rigid body and then manually plug it in. But yeah, so you can see that really smashed that domino. That's a pretty beefy shot. If we wanted it to tip over less, you could like find the sweet spot. But basically this apply force, that was my phone just falling to the ground. No worries.
Is it
Um,
a domino?
the apply impulse came out of Effect House. Effect House is evolving. We must
Change
stop it.
reality, impact reality, create awesomeness, effect house. Slogan.
What can we possibly do at this stage? Okay, so I'm just going to do this and then check this out. So this, as you can see, we could evolve this idea. And now instead of just tapping anywhere on the screen and your red dot will move around, we have the camera at, let's put this at 0 actually. So we have the camera at 0, and then this explosive is also at 0. Oh, X on the X. Okay, so this is, let's say the camera is at -60. So just simplify it. And then we'll say the explosive here is, we'll just say it's -5. Okay, -4. And then, so then we want to take that difference, 60 to 4, that's going to be 56. But that's the distance between the camera and the face of this domino. So we're going to need that info in a second here. So what we want to do is screen to world. The screen to world. We'll take this camera here as our screen to world camera. We'll take this current position here as this is that screen position that we're converting to world, and then that depth is going to be 56. That's going to be the distance forward. And this is going to give us a world position to move that explosive to wherever we click. So then the thing that I would do is set this explosive. So set to this position. And all we want to do is just squeeze this in between here. And now we're moving the explosive and then we're triggering it. So as you can see, it kind of moved to the left a little bit. And we'll see this more and more, especially if we increase this explosive power. So on the edge here, you can see it really rotates it. So like this in itself isn't a game because you can't really see too much, but and I feel like where you hit the domino isn't going to change how it hits the next domino as much. If it hits the next domino at all, it'll probably fall. But maybe you could come up with some other ideas of how this could work. Yeah, so since that other first domino is gone, I don't think the explosion will affect any of the others. But yeah, so that's a very basic, that's a way to use apply impulse, which is a great node that lets you apply this explosive force. If you want, you could also use the 3D slingshot project that we used in the past, and you could maybe have the user drag down on the screen and let go, and it'll throw an object at the domino. But this is probably where I would start. The dominoes part is pretty self-contained in 3D physics, and you don't really have to do anything else. You just set them up, and the physics will do the rest. Yeah. Hopefully this was a cool example of setting up some dominoes. If I were to do this, I would do one other thing, maybe a transit by time. transit by time. We would start it. It would take 1.5 seconds. 3 vec 3, and we would take this negative 60. Okay, we take negative 60, 23, and then we would stay at negative 60, and we would just go up. Maybe we would go to like 45. And then we would just set the camera's position. We would do a little hover over. And these are the type of things that make an effect seem higher production value, little camera movements. So this and this. So now when I tap, it'll like go up a little bit. And then you might want to change the rotation as well to make it like pan down. I wonder, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. We can move on if you want. I'll just add this piece as well.
August, so many people are talking about how useful the live stream is to them. And Graham especially said, really great job, team. It is not easy to think of a solution quickly, put it together, and also interact and talk through what you're doing, all while under pressure with everyone watching. And I think it's all props to you. Addie also said that you're such a pro and this is super helpful. So just wanted to deliver feedback. Thank you guys for
Yeah,
coming.
that's so nice. Thanks so much for appreciating it. I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, like I'm always like, oh no, people don't understand like all the different things I'm juggling.
It is you guys are the reason why we can carry on doing fun projects like this because you guys come visiting. So thank you so much. I don't mean to run away from this loving, wholesome, beautiful mood, but I do have another question from ABBC. Guys, I have a question to ask. I have many 2D textures and I want to click on one of them to reduce its transparency. I have completed this step. Is there any way to make the subsequent textures follow this step as well? No need to set up visualization nodes one by one, kind of create. To simplify the nodes. So perhaps we can use a for loop, or I was also thinking of using like image arrays. What's your best take, August?
Could you repeat the first part?
So they have, let's say, 10 2D textures and they want to tap on the screen to reduce its transparency, like go from 100 to 0. And I think what they're asking is like after image 1 goes from 100 to 0, image 2 goes from 100 to 0.
Okay, so like they're not going from 100 to 0 at the same
Yeah.
time. Okay, yeah, that's pretty easy. We'll do that. So just using 2D images. Yeah, and we'll do this in a way that you could like expand it. So we'll have 2 images. Sorry. Okay, so 2D scene object.
That
Uh,
sounded like you lost a piece of your life there. Are you okay? It was like
yeah. Oh, this might be the last question of the day, I think. I think I talked to too many people at GDC, and then I just caught something. Okay, so image array or whatever we want to call this. We want to create an empty object just to put all of our images under. Unless you have a different way to get them into an array. This is a pretty easy way because then you can just do what is it called? Get children scene objects. So since there's no way to change the parent or child of a scene object, like in Effect House currently with visual scripting, all of the objects are basically hard coded to their hierarchy order for the whole length of the effect. So you can trust this just doing a start. You don't have to use update for this. And then at the very start, it will get all the child objects of this image array. So then you have an array of all of your objects. And the other thing you could do, which might be better actually, is let's see if we can create a image. Okay, so texture 2D. Yeah, there's no way to save like a screen image array variable yet currently. So we'll just go with this. So get item from array. And so we'll be getting an item from an array, and then we will be using a timer. And okay, so the idea is let's get a counter here. And this will change which one we're fading in or out. One other thing that would be really nice is a pulse subgraph, which is something I've shared with the Discord quite a few times, and I use it on my own, but I'll just bring it in here. I think I've updated this. I just haven't. I've recently I made a couple different versions that maybe are a little better, but if you want me to share this afterwards, I can. It just puts out a pulse every some amount of seconds. But I'll share like the updated one if after this if you guys want it. So we'll say every 3 seconds, we'll increase our counter. And so in that case, we'll start from -1, because I think when we increase this current number, like the first step will turn it into 0. So that's kind of a weird hack. And so we'll get this object, and then we'll, just to get like the nodes in place, we'll get this set opacity. And then we can plug in this source is from get component by type. So we want we want image. And then we'll plug this in here so that it's programmatic, not just like auto pinned. And then we'll get our scene object here. So what we're doing is every time this pulse happens, this counter goes from, it starts at 0, and then every 3 seconds, it will get another item from this array. And then we'll use that item and get the image, and we'll be setting the opacity. So when this counter grabs the item, the next thing we want to do is use this timer. And we'll use this tick, and then we'll use this progress. And we'll say that this lasts 3 seconds as well. Or just to be safe, we'll say like 2.5. And then, so it'll fade in, and then the next one will fade in. So then we can obviously see we don't want it to keep going forever. So one way that I would deal with that, I would probably contain this in a subgraph at this point. And then I would say input, when you want this to happen. We'll create a gate so that this pulse isn't always driving it. So, oops. Oh no. Okay, so our input will open the gate. And then I guess there's the problem of there might be some delay on the pulse. So you might want to do something different than this pulse thing if you want it to be Super nice. Let's see. Is there a better way than just using this pulse, I guess? We'll use this for now, and then we can optimize later. Okay, so this gate is what's actually going to increase this, and and we'll actually want to use a sequence, which I just learned this trick. If you've never seen it before, I think you hold Shift while you're pulling out. No, wait, what was it? Shift Command? Oh man, there's some trick. I swear there's a trick that supposedly has always been around where it just automatically creates a sequence. Oh, okay, I'll just add it. Anyway, I swear there's some kind of trick. And then we can, we'll use this to open it, but first we want to reset the counter. So the counter will be reset. And then for this one, we only have like 2, right?
August, I was
And
gonna say, this is how lores start, and this is how you get like those haunted stories. Like, did you know that if you ring the bell 3 times at 12 a.m. on this moonlit night, you will magically get an image sequence?
I swear, an
If
old
you
man
use
told
a
me,
specific keyboard combination.
I swear, I was at a wishing well and this old toothless man told me about the sequence node trick. No, the old toothless man was a coworker, actually. But anyway, let's see. So now we've got this thing where it resets when you input here, and then and then we'll just do an if. This will be the clever way, maybe not the best way. This is one of those things that I think a small subgraph that I think a lot about would be really nice. Okay, so if the current number is greater than greater than 0, basically, because we only have 2. So I would rope these into the subgraph input as well. Then we will stop it, basically. But otherwise, we'll just keep fading out. So false is just the, hey, we haven't hit the max yet. And then this one, we have hit the max, so let's close the gate. And then let's just see what happens. This might not be perfect, but it gives you an insight into how I would approach this and how you could do a simple version. So finger touch. So when I touch, it should start the process. Okay, so what happened there was, it seems like it maybe this -1 is not the best. So maybe it'll start with that current number. Let's see. Huh, okay. So that, I think it's because it didn't. That's weird. Okay, let me just see. I just want to see if I tap on the opposite of this. Okay. So I think the gate is not working as I expected. It seems like when I trigger the open, it also triggers next, which is not how I would expect a gate to work. So this gate is doesn't work for our current setup.
Thank you. Next.
um, but yeah, we'll just I think it'll still be fine. I think we can just do this. And that if statement should still help us. So let's see. So we don't really need this anymore. Let's just see if this works. Okay, it's doing like the same kind of thing because the pulse is like, happening kind of asynchronously. We're only getting part of that from here. Yeah, I think I made this too complicated. I think I was trying to be clever. There's probably a better way to do it. So yeah, the counter. Let's see. I don't think we want this pulse. I think what we'll do is we'll just use the completed from the timer. So then we'll get rid of this sequence. No, this sequence is good. We'll just make this second one start the timer. Okay, so there we go. There we go. And then if you tap again, it'll reset and do its thing again. What I don't like about this solution is it looks a little bit like spaghetti. I think it would take a while to untangle it because I really don't like when a timer goes back to the start when it finishes. That's like a common solution that you see a lot because you want something to happen, and then when it finishes happening, you want to start it on the next loop. And that's what you get with these like timer counter kind of pairs. And it's fine. I feel like people use it all the time, but yeah, it starts to look a little bit like spaghetti. So just keep that in mind. It might get a little tricky to see what's going on. But basically what's happening is when you tap, it's resetting the counter back to 0 and then starting the timer for the first object. When the timer stops, it goes to increase the counter, and it'll keep doing that until it gets greater than your number, your basically max value. And the max value is going to be 1 less than your 2 in the counter, which is going to be, let's just plug this last bit together with array info. Array info will give you the length of the array. So that's the number of total items. So that number of total items is going to be in this 2. And then your greater than is going to be 1 less than that. So we'll, and that's always going to be the case. It's not like it's just because we only have 2. So if we were to duplicate these, it would still work. I just want to share that with y'all. So now if I tap, it'll go through a series where it fades them each in one by one. And of course, you would order them in some way where it makes sense. And if you want them to fade in, you would do this. If you would want them to...
This is the most beautiful thing I've seen. It's moving me to tears. So beautiful, smooth transitions.
The last thing I'll say is if you want it to go the opposite way, where it's like fading out instead of fading in, you would just do a 1 minus. So subtract 1 minus progress from the timer. And you would plug that in instead. And then you would have this look. Otherwise, if you're fading them in, you would obviously probably want them to all start with opacity 0, what I was showing before. So this works pretty well, I think. It's just messier than I usually like. And it seems a little hard to make it less messy.
Okay.
We'll go with it.
We have a lot of questions rolling in. I see a question from Addie. I see another question by Miriam. Unfortunately, we are at time. I'm so sorry, but we do have to go. But we will be back again this time next week, and we will also have bring the VFX specialist for you guys so you guys can ask VFX questions. So don't worry, we'll be back super quickly. Miriam, for how to make a ball jump on a table and fall into the cup, I think your best bet is to start with the colliders and the physics, which we covered in detail during our last office hours. So this is episode 38, but if you go to see episode 37, you will be able to see a bunch of amazing sample effects that August has created, and even some from the domino today. So check out those tutorials, see where you can get started, and next week we'll try to help you create your amazing bounce ball effect. But thank you so much, guys, for visiting. Before ending, I would just like to tell you that Would You Rather has won. If people had 57% of you guys chose that you would rather be able to slide down rainbows than to jump on clouds, which is at 43%. But I think this is biased because I told you guys all not to jump on clouds after Bruno's music festival rain incident. So I won't say that this is a reputable survey, but it was super, super fun to talk to you guys. And I have one last surprise for you, for Addie in specific. Here, let me. You earlier were asking about how we can create the wave like function combining the three different graph nodes, and I brought it up to the team, our favorite VFX folks, and then they said, wait, we actually have that exact project. So this is a demonstration. I don't think you can like you'll be able to learn anything from this like video itself, but it was created solely using Material Editor, and they said this was exactly what you would want. So come back to the next stream to learn more about how you can make stuff like this. Okay, anything to say, August?
I have nothing to say for myself. I'm so sorry.
Yes, and it seems apparent that we're busting out the accent again. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Ahoy. um, Water. Okay, bye guys.
All right. See you guys. Thanks so much for stopping by the stream.